Hello, this is Brian with the Brian Tech. Welcome back. Today, you'll learn how to connect GitHub Actions with something called Azure Blob Fuse. So without further ado, let's find out. So before getting started though, let's clarify a few terms we have to know about. First thing is, what is a Blob Fuse? Blob Fuse is a virtual file system driver made by Microsoft for Azure Blob Storage. So Blob Fuse is based on open source, but is very useful to connect to things like Azure Storage. We can use this to connect to existing Azure Blob data. Then there is GitHub Actions. So what is GitHub Actions? GitHub Actions I kind of cover in other videos too, so you might want to check out. I have a few examples and few videos about different CI/CD usage with the GitHub Actions. But GitHub Action is a CI/CD, which stands for Continuous Integration, Continuous Deployment, Automation Solution made by GitHub, available through GitHub repository. By using formatted YAML file inside .github/workflows directory, then you're good to go, and you'll learn how to do so. Now, after covering all those terminologies, let's take a look at the actual problem we are trying to solve. Just to let you know, this is just an example. It's not only an example or the situation that we can use a solution like this, but it's a good example. GitHub Actions is ephemeral, serverless like execution environment. To persist the data, there has to be an alternative solution. Although GitHub repository can be a place to store, mounting virtual hard disk through something like Blob Fuse is an option. Here, I present you steps that we will follow. 4 steps in total. First, we'll download the sample files and prepare to make some changes and put in the side repository. Then, we'll create an Azure Blob or use an existing one if you have one. Then we will get required values and then just write it down somewhere or save somewhere. We need them later. Third, we'll add a secret and environments to GitHub repository. If you're not sure, don't worry, you'll see what I mean. Last step is we'll run GitHub Actions and then verify that it is there. So let's start with the step 1, which is download sample files and prepare to make changes. To make it easy, I share the GitHub Gist, which has 2 files there, which you can go there and then maybe copy the files and then save into drive. There are 2 files I provide. One is the action file called action-sample-blob fuse YAML file. It is a GitHub action that we can start with. You probably need to make some modification there. Second file is config.yml file or YAML file. It's a configuration file that needs to be provided to Blob Fuse. So we will see what those things look like, but go to the URL and then grab those files so we can start from there. So here's my gist file, which you can go by going to the link I pasted earlier as tiny URL. So if you go there, you will see that there's 2 files here. One is action file, and then there is you can just see it. And if you see it, the way to get it is you can just kind of copy and paste like that. Or if you can go to download zip, which will download 2 files, and or grab the raw file. And if you go further down, you will see the configuration file for the Blob Fuse. So you can grab as by copying it, or go grab as RAW file, or just get it as a zip file. So that's pretty much it. And here is my files inside my IDE. You can see that I kind of created a repository and clone and put those action files in configure file. Action file is under .github/workflows, so it can be executed and recognized. And here's my configure file. So configuration file you can change if you want to, but it's like you can dig it further later on. So make sure to reference documentation. Here's my action file. You definitely want to make some changes here and there. This is just to get started with, but then feel free to modify it and fit if you understand what is happening. So, but then to start with, you probably don't need to make a lot of changes there. As you get deeper and deeper, you probably want to make some changes later. And here are some references, link, and documentation I use while creating this tutorial or the video guide. So what you want to know is that those kind of link is really lengthy, but you want to reference that, and then as along the way, you will find that, oh, this is what I need to for certain things and finding out more. So you probably don't need to read all those things to start with, but you will probably definitely need them later as you want to modify. So keep in mind. And if you want to modify your files, let's start with the action file. This will give some suggestion what you need to change. First, what is required to change is that probably you want to change the learner name. It can be self-host learner, it can be your GitHub host learner or large learner. So you probably want to change that and then make the required changes that kind of follow along with that. What is recommended to change is that there are some like redundant stuff to checking the files and then all those things. So you want to clean up a little bit, and then it's just a one single job and everything is just the multiple steps. So you probably want to clean up a little bit and sanitize. Other thing is that, I'm using the Microsoft packages, what is called Microsoft packages, to download and install Fuse. But you probably want to get it as default, like directly from the source. That's up to you. And there is a link, which I put in the reference link before, where you can find more about it. And this is something that you really should consider. I'm using the default access key token for the entire storage account, but you might want to authenticate in a different way. For example, you can authenticate it through the container level, which is lower than storage account level, or even better, something called OIDC or OpenID Connect. This is outside of this video, this guide, but you might want to look into that. Last thing is that you may want to create a new file steps to make it more relevant. So because I'm just giving sample file, new file, and then just put like hello world kind of things, you probably want something more complicated later. So that's something you probably definitely want to look into it. And there is your configuration file for Blob Fuse called config.yml file. So this is a file that is kind of configuration file for Blob Fuse. You can see that some of the secret has been taken out as environment variable, but so it can be kind of work as hybrid. But to understand better, you definitely want to read up on Blob Fuse documentation because there are so many options there. So you want to kind of see what kind of options do I have, and then which will be better for me. So you have to make the decision yourself. And once you have those files, modified, saved, you want to go to a repository or create one, and then put those into right folder structure. For example, I put my action file under .github/workflows. And the reason why I'm doing that is because there's a action recognizable path. So by doing that, we're just able to execute. And my configuration file can be technically anywhere, but make sure that it's referenced correctly from the action file. So those are the changes you have to make. And here is my repository. You can see that files are there, my configuration file and then my action files. You can see that my configuration file, you can add that file directly by just adding file, or better option is to clone it and add. But to start with, just adding file directly is fine. There is an option in the repository called create a new file. And then let's go inside of my action file, which is under .github/workflows. You can see my action file. By just doing that, is recognizable through the GitHub repository as an action. Whew. So that's it for step 1. We are finally on to step 2, which is create an Azure blob or using an existing one, then get required values. This looks really long and lengthy and a lot, but we'll explain along the way. It's not really that much. Just putting a lot of information in just one page. That's what happened. So first, we need to grab the Azure storage account name. This will pass as Azure_storage under account. It can be different name, but just to make sure that whatever you put there match in your GitHub Actions as well. Second, we need to grab the access key. This will pass as Azure_storage_ access underscore key. There is a different way to do it, and I think a better way through OpenID Connect or maybe using some kind of container key instead. So make sure to look into that if you want to improve later on. Third, we need to grab the container name. This will pass as Azure underscore storage underscore container. And then if you don't have one, make sure to create one, otherwise you'll have authentication failure error. Fourth, we need to grab the container URL. This will pass as Azure underscore storage underscore blob underscore endpoint, and then you can grab that information from the endpoint page. Fifth, we need to specify Azure underscore storage underscore account type. By default, we set it as a block, but if you want to change it to other option, feel free to explore, and then you might want to change. Lastly, we need to specify Azure underscore storage underscore auth underscore type. By default, this is set as a key, but if you want to use a container option, other option, you need to change this. It is really easy to find out Azure storage account name. It just once you go to the your storage account, it should be there at the top. So just grab that, and then you can set that value with the Azure underscore storage underscore account. Next, we want to get the access key. This is again not the best way to do it. I would suggest you look into OpenID Connect or even container key option, but this is just easy to start with. So by going looking inside under security and networking, you'll find access keys. You can just reveal it and copy that access key, and then you can set that in as a value for Azure underscore storage underscore access underscore key. And you want to get your Azure storage name, which is Azure underscore storage underscore container, by looking under data storage, and you'll find container. For this, you have to create one. So give it some name by creating new, and if you have one already, just use that. Otherwise, just create a new one, and you're good to go. And you need the Azure Blob endpoint. To find out, you can go look inside the settings, and you'll find something called endpoint. From that, you have two different endpoints. Just grab the one that has a primary, and then set it as Azure underscore storage underscore blob underscore and endpoint. And there are other two properties you can set, which you don't have to refer to Azure itself, but depending on what you want to do, you might want to change those values later too. But by default, you can set as a block for Azure underscore storage underscore account underscore type, and for other one, Azure underscore storage underscore auth underscore type, you can set it as a key. Now, depending on how you authenticate it, how you want to store, those values can change, and then also other properties might be needed. So make sure to look inside the documentation to find out more about this, and based on that, those decisions, make sure that you can change those values. And here's a screenshot that shows how I added those secrets inside my GitHub repository under settings. So you can see those two secrets there, which is hidden. And you can see my variables here. As you can see, there are 4 total, and then those things are shown as plain text. And finally, we'll run the GitHub Actions and verify on the Azure Storage account side. We'll see the dynamic animated demo for this one. Here is my repository, and I'm on Actions, inside Action. So you can see Actions tab, which I go by clicking Actions tab, and I'm going to select that workflow. So you can see that there is a workflow, run workflow option. I'm going to switch to my container. You can see there's nothing there. Even I refresh, there's nothing there. So now after Actions, you'll see the files popping up. I'm going to execute. I'm going to refresh so I can see it right away. Now let's go inside that process, and he's executing it, downloading a bunch of packages, which looks good. It's not going to take too long time because, even after it take a while, and then really the only things that is difficult is the mounting step. So you see the mount the Blob Fuse, and then it's done already, very fast, right? So, and now if I check my storage blob, you can see the files there. Perfect.